So, I came across this from fellow Twitter buddy Bernie. And boiler tax to rise £100 as Miliband pushes heat pumps. Energy Secretary accused of piling more pressure on families as new target is confirmed. So Bernie says Ed increases the boiler tax by another £100, making life even harder for all those needing to replace their boilers and won't want or can't afford an expensive heat pump. You didn't vote for this. And it's somewhere further down. Bernie also said, yes, sadly, I'm one of the dickheads who has one. On my mind's even worse. It's a ground source heat pump. Yeah, that's tears to a glass eye, because the cost of running these things is really, and yeah, I'll do another vid. Yeah, no worries. But so even if you were to type in boiler tax 2025, because, should I type in Ed Miliband boiler tax? But I mean, how about this? So Ed Miliband has announced that an increase to the boiler tax, which will add an estimated £100 to the cost of replacing the appliances. The government confirmed on Friday that the current quota for heat pumps sold by boiler manufacturers would rise from 6% to 8% from April 2026. It means for every 92 boilers sold. Now think about the car trade just now, the car industry, and look at what's happening to the car industry, because they're obligated based on CO2 emissions and whatever else to have to produce a certain amount of electric cars, or if they don't, then they have to pay a fine on every car that's not, etc., etc. And I still say that this ties into Atlas Shrugged, because what better way to destroy every single industry out there while masquerading as the righteous than government dictating how you do business? Yeah, very Atlas Shrugged. But, as I've said so many times, it's apparently roughly about, and it felt like that, 1,100 pages, and most people are not up for it. But, yeah. So, the fines are passed on to the consumer. What is it? If they fall short, companies face a fine of £500 per unsold heat pump. So remember, they've got to start selling these heat pumps, even if they believe that they're a waste of bloody time. How communistic does it get? And remember, every time communism historically has gone into place, things have gone tits up, and millions of people, tens of millions of people have died. But so but I thought, let's have another example of it, and it is fairly copy and paste, So manufacturers had already added £150 to the price of boilers to offset the lower threshold, and they now could bump it up again. What, maybe another 100, 150, 200? There's no end in sight. And I came across this initially thinking it was another article, but actually I found, as I realised, it's a plumbing company, heating and plumbing, And I was reading this, and I was also taking an interest in phone numbers, and I'll get to that, and of course the emphasis is on, kneeling servitude, serving you as we put in the best solution. Oh, Bosh, what a great name. So what is the Clean Heat Market Mechanism? The Clean Heat Market Mechanism is a government policy that was originally scheduled for April 2024. However, it has been postponed to the 1st of April because we're all fools. Remember, it's about occult mockery, humiliation, ritualistic of the many, in this case. April the 1st. The goal is to increase the installation of low-carbon heating solutions and reduce the UK's reliance on gas boilers. Now, think about it. We've got gas fields left, right, and centre all around us, right? But they don't talk about any of that. No, seriously. Under the scheme, boiler manufacturers will be required to meet targets for selling heat pumps alongside traditional boilers. So all boiler manufacturers will have to create a product or sell a product at a certain percentage of their business, otherwise they'll be fined for every single one of these hideous things that they're obliged to either make or sell. Yeah. If they fail to meet these targets, they will have to pay a fine, hence the term boiler tax. The intention is to push manufacturers to innovate and offer more eco-friendly heating solutions. Look, I'll repeat, look at the car industry just now. Look at Porsche and other corporations just now. They're in shit street, but remember, the longer term for the occult elite is they'll still get their Porsches. They'll get fabulous Porsches. They'll downsize the business big style, but you know what? It'll have a fraction amount of staff. Yeah. It still ties in Atlas Shrugged. Seriously. This is about the systematic destruction of industry in general to bring about, well, a sort of new Eden. But getting there, oh, dear, dear, dear. Seriously. Very few people seem to have a grasp of where all this goes. I mean, remember, and then just think, if you're obligated to have heat pumps that cost you so much, but then more and more of you, any spare cash you've got is to fund a vastly expensive, utterly useless heating system that they can switch off like that remotely. Yeah. The level of control, and it absolutely definitely ties into eugenics. If you look at a few of my other vids, you may get where I'm going with this, but key changes to the CHMM. Reduced penalties. Initially, boiler manufacturers face fines of £5,000 for every missed heat pump sale target. Think about this. This penalty has been substantially reduced to £500 per missed sale, alleviating potential financial burdens on manufacturers. But remember, they can change that in a matter of months based on whatever puppet they've got, purporting to be whatever minister, yeah? So adjusted sales targets. Manufacturers are now required to ensure that 6% of their sales are heat pumps from April 2025 to April 2026. Now remember, now they're talking 6 could be 8%, yeah? And I keep saying, this is like Atlas Shrugged. It's like you have a business or many different types of businesses that have been successful for decades, sometimes in many instances longer, because of how efficient they were in so many ways. A product that was, you would hardly struggle to sell because the very users of the product found great benefit and it was efficient. These heat pumps will literally draw the last of the money out of your pockets because it's so inefficient. Yeah, I gave an example. What was it, that Harry's Garage guy? I mean, he's got a pretty bloody big house, and he apparently worked out that if it was oil-fired, it would cost him X, Y, and Z. And for him, a heat pump was a great idea. But he has like acres and acres and acres of land that he literally did vids, showing pictures of the past when he'd been building this infrastructure. In the circumstances, if you've got acres of land to use as this glorified heat pump, it's much more efficient to people like him. But to Joe Blogs and any type of house, like land is a rarity here, and you need acres of land to make these heat pumps in any way efficient and a large enough house to make it viable, as opposed to the alternatives, which will be oil or LPG. Yeah, I get it. Anything else, it's absolutely bloody useless. But it's it's the wording on this. So let me see. So who will be affected by the boiler tax? While the tax is imposed on boiler manufacturers, the cost may likely be passed down to consumers. Here's how different groups might be affected. Homeowners, if manufacturers adjust pricing to offset their fines, new gas boilers may become more expensive. However, there could be more incentives and discounts for installing heat pumps. So, suggestion. Landlords, those renting out properties may need to consider future-proofing their heating systems to comply with potential regulation changes. I mean, it's still government dictating how you live your life and run your business and look at what goes into your asset heating-wise. Businesses, commercial properties relying on traditional heating systems might see rising costs, encouraging a shift to greener solutions. Goes on to say incentives for consumers, increased grants to encourage the adoption of heat pumps. The government has increased grants to £7,500. But remember, these things can cost tens of thousands, yeah? And then, that's just the start, the running costs, yeah. So helping to cover the installation costs. Simplified planning rules, here's another thing. Think about this. Simplified planning rules, which goes into your networks within councils, etc. So planning regulations have been relaxed to make it easier for households to install heat pumps. Hey, listen, we'll guide you down that compliance, and while you will see over time, there'll be more and more expected out of people, and cost-wise, and to literally have a gas boiler. Think about that. So I just had to stop the vid for a second there. I had a quick call. So it's also this next bit. What you should do next. If you're considering replacing your boiler, it may be wise to explore low-carbon options now to benefit from government grants. Now, this next bit. For those sticking with gas boilers, keep an eye on potential price increases and regulations in the coming years. I mean, it's almost like casting a spell. I mean, obviously, whoever owns this company is definitely on board, I would say. And honestly, do you want to contact them? How many 60s do you want? Anyway, your thoughts. Oh, and a thumb up. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, and I'll speak to you soon.